good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm Dipo Joseph Coker, your product marketing manager from Madcap Software. I'll be your webinar host for today, introducing our presenter and handling the logistics and the QA at the end of the webinar. And exceptionally, today I'll actually be joining in the conversation too, so it's going to be a busy day for me. I already mentioned I'll be keeping an eye on the Q&A panel, so if you do have any technical issues, make sure you drop us a quick note in there, and hopefully I'll be able to resolve them in the background. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by a legend in the content strategy industry, Val Swisher.
Val
Swisher. Hi, Val. Val Swisher is founder and CEO of Content Rules Incorporated. She enjoys helping companies solve complex content problems. And as I mentioned, she is a well-known expert in content strategy, structured authoring, global content and content development, and terminology management. Val believes content should be easy to read, cost-effective to create and translate, and efficient to manage. Her customers include industry giants such as Google, Cisco, Visa, Facebook, Roche, and IBM. And her latest book is The Personalization Paradox: Why Companies Fail and How to Succeed at Creating Personalized Experiences at Scale. She co-authored that with Regina Lynn Preciado. So look out for that link in the resources panel. I'll put that up there. You can download one of Val's ebooks on there. Val is also on the advisory board for the Technical Communications program at the University of North Texas. So when she's not working with customers or students, Val can be found sitting behind her sewing machine working on her latest quilt. She also makes a mean hummus, she says. I've not tasted it yet, but I'm looking forward to it. As I said, I'll be chipping in. Looking forward to that. I'll be chipping in now and again, and so just to help you qualify me, I qualified with an MA in multilingual technical communications at the University of Paris-Cité. I spent the next 18 years as a technical writer, as a content editor, and sometimes a consultant in fintech and medical technology device-making companies. A couple of years ago, I made the switch to creative writing and joined the Madcap Software company as a product marketing manager. Why Madcap? Well, honest products that do what they say on the tin. I've tried that out before. And great colleagues around the world, and above all, trust. Trust is one of those things that we need to keep, especially in the workplace. So just before I start, let me just do a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, we will be recording this session, so if you don't make it to the end or you've got a meeting or whatever, you will receive a link to the recording in a couple of days. At the end of the webinar, I mentioned we've got a Q&A session, so type your questions into the question panel throughout the webinar, and we'll either answer them during or we'll answer them at the end. If we do run out of time and we've not answered your question, we'll be sure to send those answers in the same email that you received the link to the recording. A little bit more housekeeping. Let's look at navigating the On24 interface. You're currently looking at us. You see us through what is called the media player. I'll highlight that. And the media player can be moved, minimized, resized. So if you get bored of watching our faces and you just want to see the slides, you can always minimize that. Or if you want us in, full screen, go for it. If you hover your mouse over any of those panels, in the top right, you see icons to perform the desired action. So these same controls are also available for the slides window, and that's where you've got today's presentation, and any slides that we'll be using will be displayed there. That can be moved and resized. Note though, when you're using the questions panel, which is just to the right of that, that you will only see your own questions and any answers that we push out to the entire audience. So just in case you're wondering, I'm not seeing any other questions, nobody's asking questions, type your questions away. Rest assured, we're seeing it over here. So that's the question panel over there, the slides panel, and I mentioned the resources panel where you've got links and downloads to certain things that we thought you might like. Finally, just across the bottom of the browser window are the control icons for each of the panels I just mentioned. So just click on any one of them. If you lose a particular panel, click on the icon and that will bring it straight back up again. Today's webinar, let's get down into the meat of things. It takes us on a journey through the intricate landscape of medical device documentation, structured content documentation. We'll embark on an exploration by diving into key indicators and critical considerations that will help you assess your organization's readiness for structured content. So whether you're a content strategist, a marketer, or information professional, this webinar is designed to provide you with valuable insights and actionable steps to ensure a seamless transition from unstructured to structured content. At the end of this webinar, you should come away with an understanding of structured content, a way for assessing your current state, and some real examples of the benefits of structured content. And we'll also look at an ability for you to start building your business case for adopting data structured writing and a CCMS, of course. Shall we, Val?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that introduction and all the explanation. And I make a very mean hummus, I'm telling you. It's world renowned. World renowned, I'm telling you. Okay, let's advance a few slides here. All right. So today, what we're going to talk about, you just said, what is structured content? What are the benefits? How do you assess your current state? And how do you build a business case? And we already have a question about AI, which does not surprise me. And I will address, it's all anybody wants to talk about. So I will address the whole issue of AI as we move along, but please ask your questions. It's the hot topic. All right. So let's just do a little overview for folks that might not already know. It's really funny because I describe structured content by talking about unstructured content. And it seems to me that that's not officially the way it should be done, to describe something by saying what it's not. But unstructured content is the kind of content that we have traditionally grown up with. It's that content that starts at page 1 and then it just keeps going and going and going and going until you reach the end, page 332. It is
Yep.
a monolith. Perhaps it's broken down into chapters, but really it's just a big monolith. And one of the biggest problems with it is that when I want to reuse content that's in an unstructured form, what I end up doing is copying and pasting, which might be okay if only I could avoid that urge to make it better and tweak it. So we're going to talk about the benefits of structured content, but right off the bat, what I'm trying to show in this illustration is that I'm copying and pasting and then, inevitably tweaking it. And I end up with what we call content drift, so that what I started with is not what I'm ending with 7 documents later. That's just one of the many things. But unstructured content's what we're used to. Microsoft Word, unstructured frame, WordStar. Go back a long
Oh God, what perfect.
So structured content is very different. In structured content, I write my content, I create it, I manage it, I translate it, everything I do in small chunks. And depending upon what flavor of structured content you're using, we may call the chunks topics, we may call the chunks components, we may call the chunks chunks, for lack of a better word. And there are a few things that are very distinct about these components. First of all, they're reusable. And when I reuse a component, topic, chunk, whatever you want to call it, I am not copying and pasting. I am actually using that single source of truth everywhere I need it, because it's a small piece. So I can just take it and use it. I can make a map and say, okay, here, grab that chunk. Oh, here, grab this other chunk. And in different outputs, I can move them around. I can use some and not all. I can mix and match other ones. One of the things that is really important is that these chunks have no formatting. So in the world of Word or unstructured content, if I want a heading to be Helvetica 16 bold left justified, which is my favorite heading, it's in there as I'm writing. Well, if I want to use that content someplace else, that's going to be a problem. What if I want to use it on my phone? Helvetica 16 bold does not work on my phone. So by being what I like to call format agnostic or format neutral, I just have text and illustration, and then at the end, right before I publish it, that's when I get the format. So that for my phone, it could be, I don't know, Helvetica 6-point font, right justified. And in a desktop, it could be my Helvetica 16 bold blue left justified. I can do whatever I want with that format. That makes the components even more reusable. So
Right.
that's
just comment on that.
Please.
Like, I love the Lego analogy for talking about reusable content. You can either have a jigsaw puzzle is something that you can have lots of fun with, but you must always assemble it in the same way. Well, you could decide whether you start at the bottom left or top right, but the pieces only fit together in one way. With Lego, you can build a castle, and with the same bricks, you build a little country home. And with the same bricks, you build your airplane. You might add a few other bricks that maybe you needed the flat ones that weren't used in the house, but those are like unique components. However, the idea is you could just, from those same blocks, you can build whatever you want. And then when it comes to separating that, the text, the content from what it looks like at the end. Think of a car production, manufacturing site, the door panels are not painted until the end. So if they started off painting the door, well, we're building blue cars now, so we're going to paint all the doors blue. Well, when you get to the end, you have to follow that process. And in the end, if you needed to buy, you were selling more green cars than blues, well, you would have to scrap that blue door or take it all the way to the beginning again and go and repaint it. By saving the painting until the end, the manufacturer has gained in speed of production. They can create many multiple parts and then at the last minute decide what it's actually going to look like. And everyone's had that problem of, I just moved that image in my Word document, I've got all my text all done, I finished on an even page so that, the printer loves it and everything. And I moved that one image and now I've got 5 extra pages just to make it even more annoying, making an odd number of pages rather than the even that you were looking for.
Great analogies, really great analogies. Some of them, those are new to me, so I'm going to steal those. I'm going to leverage those. Exactly. So just like those car doors, I can take a component and I can publish that exact same content to different outputs dynamically. So that's really exactly as what we were just talking about, my blue output versus my green output for my car doors. So those little components can be mixed and matched. And, there are a lot of best practices around making them mix and matchable. That's a new word. But the basic premise is I've separated it out. And now I have just small pieces of content. and that makes them much more usable. And by the way, it makes them much more ingestible by AI. We know because we're working with AI companies, Gen AI providers, that structured content is the best content to use and train your AI engine with. So nothing is lost when you move to structure, and everything is gained when you move to structure. And I can talk about that a little bit more as we go on.
Yeah, we've actually even got a question on there, like, are there any guidelines yet on how to structure content, both for source and output, for use with AI? So we'll come to that, like, take your time. We'll come to that maybe towards the end. But
there are. Let's talk a bit about the benefits of structured content. Let me see how I can weave some things in here. Saves time, saves money. Because let's remember, because we're going to talk about business case, the only thing that the CEO of your company cares about is making money and eliminating expense. That's it. The rest of it is just, you could make this kind of widget or that kind of software or car doors or whatever you want. But the goal is to maximize shareholder value. And using structured content allows you to do this because it's going to save time. It's faster to create content. It's going to save money, particularly in translation. I have customers that have saved real money in translation moving to structure. We eliminate content drift because we're reusing that content. We're improving findability because I can find what I need. It's a small little chunk. I tag that chunk with metadata, and I don't have to look through a huge document, a huge amount of content. I can go exactly to the place where I need it. As we were talking about, I can deliver to all different kinds of formats, and I can personalize the delivery. Because if I know enough about you, I can make it so that you get these chunks of content, and Harry gets these other chunks of content, and Sally gets these other chunks of content if I know enough about you and Harry and Sally, because I'm mixing and matching all my little pieces together. But wait, there's more. You say the same thing everywhere you need to say it, and you have a single source of truth. You write it, you edit it, you approve it, you translate it one time. So let's relate this to AI, even though it's not on the slide, because that's what we talk about. One of the biggest issues we have with large language models and generative AI on the whole is that if you train them using content that is inconsistent, you said one thing over here and you said the opposite over there, and you know that you have this in your content. Everyone has this. If you train it with semantics, with vocabulary, with sentence structures that are not clean and clear. If you try to train your engine with garbage, that's French, garbage, then at best, you're going to have an inconsistent response. At worst, your AI is going to make something up. We call it hallucinations. It's just going to make stuff up. The problem with the hallucinations is that they are so well written. They are perfectly grammatically correct, and they will fool you. They will. You will read it and think, oh, that's right, and it's completely wrong. I have seen this. So if you train your engine with a single source of truth that's cleanly written, that is grammatically correct. Yes, the natural language understanding, NLUs, as opposed to NLPs, natural language processors, understand jargon. You can put idioms in there. I don't think you should when you're training, but you can. But if it's not clean, if it's not consistent, the trust is going to be gone because you cannot guarantee what's going to come out of that thing. So it's really, yeah, right. Do you have more to add?
Well, I mean, like, I mean, we all learn language using grammar rules. And the grammar rules for one particular language are pretty much the same wherever, like, you were learning that language. I learned French here in France. However, there's like, slight differences between French and Canadian, Quebecan French. But I am able to speak to any other French person and they will understand me because we have the same rules. That rules is equivalent to what you do with structured content in adding metadata and attributes and describing that. So if you start training your AI without a set of rules or a way for it to interpret those rules and to say, well, this is the way it is. Okay, so that must mean that this belongs to this part of the sentence structure, or I'm talking about this, then you will end up with garbage, as you said, and you will also, end up with these hallucinations because it will produce, with the predictive way that it puts words that logically follow each other, you could read something and you would think that, wow, this is perfect, copy it out, and that's how you get caught in your exams.
It's one of the ways, for sure. So there's a tremendous benefit to structuring your content, cleaning it up. We call the process curation, curating your content, getting rid of the old stuff, getting rid of the stuff that's incorrect, chunking it into small pieces and making sure that they're accurate and well written. That is the way you want to train an AI engine. It's been proven. We've done, tests with it. Here, what happens if I give it this kind of content? What happens if I give it that? Let's try to trick the AI. It's tricked very easily. So what's interesting is that the same rules for cleaning your content for anything, for translation, for English as a second language or whatever, primary language, just for good, solid content, it's the same rules. Clean, short sentences, having a chunk that's focused on a particular topic, writing it the same way, training your engine with a consistent corpus. It's the same rules. So
I'd like to just say one more thing to the benefits of content reuse, and that's one area where I spent majority of my life as a technical writer, and that's compliance and auditability. If you're able to reuse components, once that particular, let's talk about safety notifications. You've written your safety notification, and the risk of electric shock is the same when you're opening the cover of the generator as when you're closing the cover of the generator. Now, in a Word document, you would copy that warning, careful, make sure you don't, you use a proper insulated whatever. You would copy that from chapter 1 and then go and stick it in chapter 26 where you're finally closing the generator. Now, the day comes when, you're going to have to reword that, maybe change a symbol, add a full stop or comma to make sure that the sentence makes sense. And you're going to change it at the top and that's it. I'm giving a very simplified example with only 2 instances inside of a 26-page document. The reality is you will have the same warnings used spread across. Now, when it comes to single sourcing or reusing content, if you write that warning once and then reference it everywhere you need to use it, if that requirement changes, if that warning changes, you only need to do it once. That's going to help you with your compliance. And also when you're getting audited, And then they're asking you, well, okay, you said you changed this manual. Show me where you changed it. Now show me how you can prove that none of the other topics were inadvertently changed, invisible defects. You know, somebody was scrolling through, opened the document, put a full stop in the wrong place, and everything just like jumped out of sync in your Word document. Well, during auditability in your CCMS, you have version numbers with it. And so you can just show version X, which we submitted 2 years ago, version Y. I told you I changed topics 1 and 3. If you compare the version numbers, only topics 1 and 3 have version numbers that have changed. And so, boom, there we go. That's the answer to your question. My regression analysis is like, you know, is really thorough. And I'm also able to prove that I've not mistakenly made, you know, a mistake somewhere that could cause a lot of harm.
Absolutely. And in highly regulated industry, it becomes critical to have that version control and that audit trail. And if you single source, then you single change, you single translate. Yeah. So everything you're doing is one time with the audit trail and the proof. Yes. And having that proof can be the difference between having a product go out onto the market and not having it just denied. You know, regulatory just pushes it back to you. And that's a very big deal.
Stop shipment. Oh. Ooh, dreaded words.
Very bad. Very, very bad. Okay, personalized content. So it's a benefit. And I want to talk a little bit about a best practice for personalized content that also helps with AI training and everything else. The premise of the book that Regina and I wrote about the personalization paradox, the paradox is that in order to deliver personalized content at scale, you really need to standardize everything about that content. And that's a paradox. In order for me to deliver something specific, I need to make sure it's standard. There's a variety of ways to look at this. One is I always use a dog care analogy. Let's just say that I have a dog and there's 4 of us, and one of us is going to write on the topic of how to train it, and another is going to write on the topic of how to groom it, and another is going to write on the topic of how to feed it, and another's going to write on the topic of how to walk it. And we're going to put all these components together, and we're going to make the ultimate guide to caring for your dog. Except I called it a dog, and you called it a canine, and someone else called it a snickerdoodle, and someone else called it a puppy, and someone called it a hound. We never standardized on what we're going to call this dog. And we need to, because the person reading this information is going to say, wait a second, is a canine the same thing as a hound? Isn't a hound a specific kind of dog? What are we talking about? And in dog care, most of us, kind of get the walking grooming thing, but in technical writing and what we really write about, it's usually pretty complex. So in order for me to be able to mix and match these components and give you an experience that is understandable, you need to standardize your terminology, your sentence structure, your style. What tense are we in? Are we coming? Are we going? Have we been there? I don't care. Just pick one. So the more we standardize our components, the easier they are to mix and match. So that's another best practice that's going to help you with all kinds of comprehension, any kind of comprehension. So, that's just following on and standardizing the content that you use to train an AI engine with. That's how you get really good training. That's how you really avoid the dangers of the hallucination, the terrible, terrible thing. And then let's also talk about translation. In translation, if I'm translating something that's unstructured and I have 3 languages in addition to the original source, so total 4 languages, but I have different versions because I have one for mobile and one for a tablet and one for a desktop, I have an exponential translation problem. Exponential. It's not just a simple multiplication. The complications get exponential because I need to translate each one of these. And by the way, I have to pay for that too. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I have to pay for that. Yep. If instead I'm using structured content that's free of format, that I can use that single source of truth, then I translate once, one time. And then the format's applied at the end, and I push it out for whatever format I need, omnichannel, whatever I want to do. This is really big money. It's big money once you get past a good 4 languages. I have customers that have 25, 40 to 70 something languages. And this is millions of dollars. I'm not kidding. Oh, yeah. Millions of dollars. So that's so many benefits to structure. Really important. All right, so let's move on because maybe we've beaten the benefits to death. Let's move on to how do I know where I am? Okay, so let me start by saying the most common reason a customer calls me and asks me to engage with them, this is the most common. Nobody can find anything. We need metadata. It's always, no, we need a new tool at metadata. Nobody can find it. Metadata, metadata, metadata. And I'm like, whoa. No. I'm sure you need metadata, but we don't start with metadata. Yes, findability is usually the biggest problem that people have. But when we really assess where you are today, we don't start with findability and metadata. We start with, what are your business goals? What are you trying to achieve? What are the mandates that your group has been given? What are the KPIs that you're needing to meet? We also look at, okay, well, how are you doing things today? What's your ecosystem? What's the workflow? Where is the pain? Where does it hurt? Mm-hmm. And we look at, what is your situation today? And what is the ultimate goal or goals? And we analyze that gap. And then we determine the next steps. Do you need to move to structure? You know, sometimes you don't. There have been, believe it or not, there have been situations. I had a customer a few years ago who had 300 writers. They were all using unstructured frame, and they had 0 reuse. And they weren't translating. 0 reuse. I was like, no, you have to have reuse. Give me that content. Let me look. They had 0 reuse, and they weren't translating. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not finding a really good reason to move everybody 300 writers.
Yeah, that is huge. And I have got examples of our customers who are in regulated industries, and they're using Flair, which is XML, but it's not DITA structured content. You know, right. Same goals. Right.
Exactly. So really, you need to start way up here with really understanding what's the point. What's the point? With this customer that didn't move, I couldn't find a business goal that matched, oh, this definitely calls for structured content. That wasn't the case. We actually ended up doing a whole bunch of frame scripting back in the day. Remember that? Way back in the
Oh,
dark
frame
ages?
script.
Yeah. Yes, frame script. Yes. To help them. But you need to look at what you're doing today and what it is that you're trying to achieve. And that's how you analyze your current state. It doesn't start from, I can't find anything. That's one of the problems.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Sometimes your problems can be solved with a change in your workflow. I've seen it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, if only you did this before that, or this person reviewed it before it went over here, or this person didn't review it now. Now is not the right time.
Mm-hmm.
We can actually alleviate some of these things. But you really need to look at the bigger picture before you can determine the next steps. And we always look for what we call quick wins. What can we do today in this environment without a big upheaval to make some of these problems go away? And then what is the vision so that your business goal is achieved? So, and often that involves a tool. And then it would be, okay, well, do you need Flare? Do you need Ixiasoft? Do you need Xyleme? Which one do you need? Because we can satisfy all of them. So,
and one of the things actually I said, like, coming over to Madcap, and one of the things that I loved about it is, like, that you're not forced into one solution. You could start with one and then progress. There's pathways to progress between the tools and so on. So it's really exciting times over here. But sorry, let me get back. I'll take off my product marketing hat.
No, it's true. It's true. And, integrate Xyleme into your mix as well. And that adds some really exciting things. We do a lot of work with Xyleme. It adds really exciting possibilities. All right. Now let's talk about building the business case. And there happens to be an expert in the room on this. That's not me, although I can help you build a business case. But I know that you have a lot of experience in this.
Wow.
I say, restate your business. You know what? I wish I had a slide with all of the things from your blog post, but I don't.
All right, yeah, because I did write a blog post about it. I would not go as far as saying that I'm an expert, but I have looked into this, and it is something that I've experienced, and I work with people who do this for others all the time. So go on to, like, the Mad blog to the Mad blog site. There's a link in the resources panel, like, and just do a quick search for building business case, and you'll find, like, that article there. But just to quickly give you a resume, when it comes to building your business case, the first thing that you must realize is that you're not pitching this to your technical writing colleague. Usually you're building to C-suite and above. You're pitching to management, and you've got to look at it from their point of view. So yeah, I'm going to be the search thing. I'm going to find topics really quickly. I'm going to be a little bit more efficient. That doesn't talk to your manager. As long as the work is done, it doesn't care whether or not you're being efficient. So you need to pitch from their point of view. And how do you pitch that point of view of theirs? So, for example, faster go-to-market. You can promise me that. How are you going to do that? Well, we talked about the experience of verification and validation, taking a requirement and seeing whether or not you have responded to it. Efficacy through reuse. So you can put that reuse in there, but you're telling them that, well, if I'm able to reuse, 30% of my manual is already built, and that means we can reduce the time that it'll take for me to produce that documentation. When there's an update, there's like something that broke in the field, and you found out, we can fix this, and I've been through that before. If it's going to take you 3 weeks to 6 months to fix a couple of things, add a couple of procedures or whatever, the business is shedding money. So if you're able to say, like, well, there's a change to that safety message, and for me to change it, I just have to change it once and republish. And I know that in all 26 chapters, everywhere it's But if I have to do that manually and then go back and verify and make sure that I have changed every single version, yeah, you can use find and replace, but only up to a certain point. Your regression analysis becomes like, so much faster. You're able to say, well, I'm changing this. What are the dependencies? What are the topics? What are the chapters that are dependent on that content? I'm able to see and make sure that whatever I'm changing is not going to break other things or mislead other people. If you're looking at cost savings, we mentioned translations, cheaper translations. It's been proven up to 30% cost savings over time. Obviously, like when you first move over, that's a whole other, that we'll have a webinar on that. Reduce support calls. If you tell your organization that you can reduce the number of call center costs, the number of field engineer visits and all of that, why? How can you do that? Well, look, usually they've been calling us for this problem where all you had to do was unplug and replug. The famous, have you tried turning it off and on? Well, if that was in the first line of your documentation and the person was able to get to that, then they would try that before calling you. And so you've saved up 5 minutes of call time for somebody to just say that and then to go, okay, so it works now. Thank you very much. Would you like to rate me, please? Quicker or more secure audits. I wouldn't redo that one again, but your traceability and auditability are a lot faster. The time that the auditors will spend on your premises will be a lot quicker, a lot less stressful. There'll be fewer requests for holiday after the audit has just gone through because everyone was able to, or at least everyone in the doc department was able to breeze that through. So it's reduced X. How? Your user experience. If you're able to identify and then change content, be more reactive. People are searching for this on the website. So, well, let's create those topics. Having micro content, this new thing that's coming around now, micro content, that little bit of an explanation that helps you or gives you just what you're looking for. You don't need to read through the 23 pages of the chapter. It gives you the reply. And then if you want more, then you click and you go further in there. And then the magic word of today, Gen AI, future-proofing your content. Structured content, we've mentioned, as Val has mentioned earlier on, is better for training your content. It's more consistent and it will lead to better sources of truth and better reliability on that content. So those are some of the things that you can do. You can tell your bosses to make that business case for, well, let's get rid of Microsoft. No, let's get rid of Google Docs because that's usually the free one. Let's get rid of Google Docs. Yeah, and let's invest in a help authoring tool. Then you've got to decide which help authoring tool, and all of that then becomes use case. What do you want out of it? What do you want to get out of it? What are your goals? What's your content strategy? So you go and see Val, and then she'll look at all your content, and then she'll say, okay, well, you're best suited to this type of structure and this type of tool.
Absolutely. I agree with everything you've said. And if I can just boil it down to the categories, let's remember that all your CEO cares about is increasing profits, decreasing expenses, and let's add another one that you've pointed out, decreasing risk. That's what they care about. Make more money, spend less money, and lower the risk. The rest of it doesn't matter to them. So everything you talk about needs to be voiced around these three primary goals. Time to market. Well, I need to make more money. If I'm late to market, then my competition is going to be there first. Can you quantify it? Right? How much does a tech support call cost? I had a customer once tell me that for every widget they sold, they added $2 to the price because they had calculated that a support cost them $2. They sold a lot of widgets. This was a B2C company, so business
Mm-hmm.
to consumer. That's a fortune. That's a lot of money. So, what can you quantify? What can't you quantify? But it always needs to be around increasing profits, decreasing expenses, eliminating risk. So that's the most important thing. The rest of it doesn't matter. I wish it did. I have heard more CEOs say the quality of the content, it just has to be good enough. It makes me
Oh
sad. It
yeah.
breaks my heart, but that's the
Mm,
truth. That's the truth of it. So,
yeah.
unfortunately. So, all right, we've come to the end, and now you know all about me. Um, I have spent a lot of years in AI, 16 years in natural language processing, believe it or not. And we probably have a question or two, would be my guess.
Oh, we've got a lot of really nice questions, and I've answered some of them that I could.
Okay,
So that's you notice sometimes I was looking down, so I'm not exactly a touch typist. But let's get to the questions on here, and I'm gonna go in order of arrival. We've got 15 odd minutes, so I think we should be able to get through all of these. So
go
the
easy
first
on me.
question I
Go
will
easy
do.
on me.
Are there any guidelines yet for how to structure content, both source and output, for use with AI?
So, hopefully, we've answered a lot of that during the
Mm,
presentation. What I will say and say again and again is that your content has to be consistent. It has to be accurate. If you try to train an AI engine with content that is not accurate, you will get inaccurate results, I promise. If you
yeah.
train it with inconsistent content, you said it one way here and you said it a different way here, and now I'm not so sure. Is a hound the same thing as a canine? Did I use hound, which is a specialized term, to mean all dogs? It's just gonna make really well written stuff up. So you need a lot of content. You need to curate a lot of content. A lot means everything you have that's relevant. Um, one of the things that I'm realizing now, I was recently asked to write a piece for a book on AI. Are you willing to do the work? That's the biggest problem I see right now. Everybody's trying to jump into AI, but they're not
Mhm.
stopping to do the work. Are you willing to do the work, or are you going to risk the inaccuracy that you could get? And doing the work starts with componentization and cleaning it up. And those really are the guidelines. So it's good writing. You need good writing.
Mhm.
So
Okay. Moving on to the
hopefully that
next
answered it.
one. Yeah, I think we got to that. And they can always get in touch with us, if you want further, if you've got further questions, don't hesitate, pop into, we've got LinkedIn
There you
groups.
go.
You can contact Val directly through the
Email
website,
me.
Yeah. Okay, so next question. Hi, Val. We have many manuals across three hardware families: motherboards, chassis, and servers, which we manage using multiple projects in a tree-shaped global parent-child file import hierarchy. In this system, each parent project, and by extension, its many child projects, corresponds to one hardware family. I wanted to know how best to structure our content in this system to ensure smooth updates and file imports for a team of more than 12 writers. This is a full consultation here.
Oh, honey, that's going to cost you. I'm sorry. That's going to cost you. I mean, we can do it. We've done it, but I can't
Mhm.
do it in a 3-minute answer. And that's well beyond, but I'd be very happy to help you with that. Val@contentrules.com. Very happy to help you
Yep.
with that. Uh, We
Click on the
certainly
link, go on and book some time with Val, because there's so many variables in there that it is difficult to, like Val said, in 3 minutes give an answer. It just wouldn't be complete, and it wouldn't be fair either. So yeah, pop over
absolutely.
there and give them a shout. Next question. I appreciate and advocate for single source content, single source of truth. How do you handle the varied audience point of view? For example, online help, existing or seasoned user, e-learning, new user experience, and administrators, IT, release notes, consumer, without a lot of excessive conditioning of content?
This is a very good question, and it's a question that I get asked all the time. And nobody likes my answer. No one likes my answer. My
Go on,
answer
and then I'll give
is
you mine.
you write it as simply as you possibly can, because it doesn't matter who you're telling. This is not the world's next great novel. This is technical content. You write it using short sentences with simple words. It's as simple as you can. And if you write the information one time as simple as you can, you will satisfy everyone who needs to understand what it is they're doing. That limits your conditioning. I stay very far away from conditionalized reuse. I use it when we have to, but I wouldn't use it to change out words because I think that there's a persona. I'm very anti-persona, by the way. There's a persona that needs it explained more complicated than the initial user who just wants a simple explanation. Sure, you might have additional instructions for the administrator or IT people. Well, that's easy. We're writing in components. Give those components, personalize that information, give those components to the admins. Don't give them to the newbies. But for the same content, if you write it well, simply, that's the solution. People don't like the answer. They don't like that. I don't like personas. To me, personas are nothing but stereotypes. Nobody really fits a persona. I have a whole soapbox. So.
But I'd say, I can understand there's a certain thing, and you did mention it in for the administrator. So I used to write for service manuals, and you had class A, class C, and class M. Class A, everyone had it. Class C were consultant ones, and class M were internal. And so we did have to have that content separated. However, separating it using conditioning is usually asking for trouble, looking for spaghetti code, as we call it. And so what you want to be doing is, one, componentizing your content, and also your metadata. Your metadata is this is where it becomes that magic keyword. Attributes and metadata will allow you at publication to then separate that content.
Yes.
And you can also tie it in with, a good content delivery platform that will also recognize that. Xylene, we were talking about Xylene. Xylene's got that in that it can identify a student, and so the student can continue from where they're learning, or based on a questionnaire that they've answered, they've been assigned a particular level, and so the courses that are proposed to that person are the advanced level ones. We're no longer looking at what is HTML, but how do you write the script for this? And that sort of thing is handled at the metadata level, and that metadata is applied to the topic and not the segment that you're working on. I think the only inline one that I would say, I did something on localization, and that's where maybe inline attributes or not even profiling, but working at a line level where you have UI control. Things like UI control can be fed in, and you can use keys to manage those as well. And so you're documenting version X, and so the keys will then go and pick up from an external source all the UI control labels that are supposed to go in there. And when you publish for the big advanced manager that has those hidden menu items, those then come out for that. So, you know,
Yep.
I hope that answered the question between both of us.
Hope so.
Let's move on. We got 5 minutes left, and we've got another few questions. And so, this one looks like it's for me. Are you proposing writing structured content in Madcap Flare editor HTML, or using Madcap XCS CCMS using Bidder, or another authoring tool? Okay, yeah, that one's up.
You need to give the consultant standard answer. It depends.
It depends.
That's the consultant standard answer. It depends, but I leave it to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like you can do structured writing in Flare. I do know of customers of ours who do that. And I gave a talk at a couple of conferences last year on applying the principles of structured content to your unstructured topic-based content. And so you can do things like classifying, typing your information. Is it a task? Is it a concept? Is it a reference? And then separate things like that. So you can, there's no one solution that is right for everyone, depending on, the level of granularity that you want to go with your reuse, with your content splits, depending on the complexity of your output. You have to look at it first of all as, okay, well, where do I want to go? And then what tools are going to help me to get there? So yes, you can use Flare for Ditter. You can use Flare in its native XML format and then export to Ditter. Most people don't normally do unless they're ready to upgrade to the next level. And I think that ties into the next question on here. What are the main differences between Madcap Flare and Ditter? Flare, if used properly, is pretty structured in my humble opinion. Well, Flare is the tool and Ditter is the standard. And so that's the first thing to take away from that. Okay, so then Flare writes in XML, which is a particular XML that belongs to Madcap. And Ditter is an open standard that is controlled by the OASIS committee. So it's a question of choosing which standard you want to go for. Do you want something that is really structured and has all the rules written by the organization up there? Or do you want something that is a little bit more free playing and you can make things up as you go along? You can put things together, create your own rules, your own data structure if you want. You can implement a DTD and make sure that things are arranged in a particular manner in your Flare projects and things like that. So you can do a little bit about both, but I wouldn't say you can compare Flare to Ditter. Flare to Ixia CCMS, those are tools, and then the underlying technologies are slightly different. Next question. Do you have any tips for someone who is using structured content, but a few leaders in the organization continue to do their own thing, Word docs and PowerPoints?
Well, I think the assumption is that the content that the leaders in the organization needs to be managed with the rest of the content. That's what I'm hearing. So it's kind of like, how do you convince people who aren't using structure to use structure? And I would say very delicately, so we have a little saying, it's at Content Rules, technology is easy, people are hard. So change management can be very difficult, and particularly when people are in leadership roles, because it's kind of like, well, you can't make me. So it's tough. I think that you need to come up with the list of what is happening because they're not playing well with others. What is the impact? And if you can put the impact in profit, loss, and risk, that's even better. If people are, they can't be efficient because they can't use your content, they have to do all this extra work. it's costing this much time. Well, this is the average salary. Here's what we're paying every time they have to do it. So I think trying to quantify the impact is probably the best way to go. You can try cookies. I've tried cookies. You can try scotch. That's a little iffy, but quantifying the impact and finding out why is it that they don't want to move. Is it the interface? Is it, what is it? Can you offer to sit with them and explain things, to take them to lunch, explain how to do it so that they're not embarrassed in front of the people who work for them? I mean, there's a reason they're not moving. So finding that could be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. It's that question of like, why? Before you can answer it, you got to find out why. If it's the interface, then, well, there are more and more tools coming on that are simplifying that interface. And like, take a look at like, what we're doing. Obviously, I'm going to say that. But, you don't have to have that complex interface. You can also like, try and entice them a little bit at a time, maybe by including them in reviews and like the review interface, which is like, so clean. And when they see, how easy it was to send you feedback and like you were able to fix it in a lot less time than they would do scrolling through their Word document and all of that, then you're starting to convince. You're convincing by showing as opposed to like, trying to instruct, trying to impose. You need that buy-in, you need that convincing. And like you said, humans are hard.
They are. People are hard. Computers, easy. People.
Okay, I think we've come to that. I think we can do like a couple of last questions on here. Do you have any tips for someone who is using structured no, we've just done that one. Do people usually train AI on the source file, for example, data files, or on the output generated HTML?
No one's ever asked me that before. At the end of the day, it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter. What I have seen mostly is source files rather than output, I think. But there's nothing wrong with HTML. Any XML will be fine. So data is fine. Flare XML is fine. Xylem XML is fine, but HTML is equally fine. So I usually see it on the source, but I don't see why it would be a problem to train it on the output.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about probably how most of ChatGPT, to name one, has been trained, it's been trained on like, HTML files. A lot of the content from the internet was hoovered up as HTML. They did not go out and ask for the source files from all the people that they've managed to. So you can, but the advantage of training on the source files also includes like, things like all the metadata and all that additional, the semantic information that you've added to the source, which you lose some of when you transfer into HTML. So
the metadata is very important. So as much metadata as you can will be extremely helpful. So good question. I haven't had that.
All right, I think we've gone through all the questions and we've come to the end of our time. Thank you ever so much, Val. It's been, as usual, excellent having a chat with you. Let's organize something again soon. I do like this.
Absolutely. This was fun. Thank you so much for having me.
It was a pleasure. Get the Insights series up and running again. So that's a wrap. We did get round to everyone's questions. You will be receiving email with the link to the recording afterwards. So a few people had to drop off to meetings and all that sort of stuff. But thanks very much. Look out, go on to the Madcap webinars and sign up to any other webinars. You've got some great resources that we've provided. Thanks, Val, for providing some of those resources. And we'll see you again soon. Thanks a lot.